Hello everyone and welcome to ISA 2021 virtual event. My name is David Banks, presenting from Orlando, Florida, and I'm going to show you all the innovative and exciting products that EVERYLITE has to offer. So to preface this conversation, you might be familiar with the EVERYLITE brand as an LED provider as well as a vendor for LED modules, power supplies, RGB products, and a multitude of other signage solutions. The reason I bring this up is because we are not just any LED vendor. We are a signage solutions provider. And I'm going to start that out with one of our first solutions, the Alpha Letter brand. So what is Alpha Letter? Alpha Letter is a brand of EVERYLITE that builds and manufactures letters, logos, LED-powered neon signage, and a multitude of other signage with a high level of craftsmanship and attention to detail. Behind me, you can see three of the main product lines, Chromatic, Acrylica, and Alpha Neon. I'm going to start from left to right with the Chromatic series and continue in that progression. So Chromatic, what is it? Chromatic is a stainless style letter that introduces acrylic features to offer nice, even illumination. The most common sizes for this are from 4 inches to 24 inches, but we can make larger or smaller sizes depending on the font size and some differing parameters. An example of a small letter size we offer would be this R in front of me, or this little baby M in front of me. The different types of illumination that are available for Chromatic would be face lit, return lit, a prismatic style letter, and as well as a metal trim letter. And I'm going to show some examples of that on the table in front of me. So right here, coming back to the R, this is a trimless letter. It's a faceless letter, and what trimless means is that there is no reveal of acrylic coming out of the front of that. It's very advantageous for a nice, clean, seamless look. You get a nice metal profile that can be done in a multitude of finishes. But say you didn't want a trimless finish, say you wanted a top return lit, or say you wanted a return lit. Let me grab this letter right here. Okay, so this E is a bottom return lit letter. Face return would just be where the metal and the acrylic are inversed of one another, but all that means is there's a piece of acrylic that is going to have some sort of reveal, whether it's out of the top of the letter or the bottom of the letter. That gives you some profile dimensionality, as well as, say you were to flush mount this to the wall, you could flush mount this letter. You could have a halo illumination similar to the ETL right here. So you get a nice halo, and the camera can't pan over this way, but if you were to see, you have a nice profile look as well. We also offer pure halo, and all of these letters can be combined together to give you a multitude of different looks. So we can do top return lit, bottom return lit, combinations of all of them as well. Another interesting feature I'd like to point out is because all of these letters are made with stainless steel, we can do a multitude of finishes with them. So we have a polished finish, brushed finish, we can do a mill finish, painted finish. The advantage to doing these different, using steel is you can make copper, brushed nickel, brass, antique brass, and so on and so forth. There's many options available. And I'm going to kind of transition away from Chromatic and move over to the Acrylica series. Okay, so Acrylica is our solution to full acrylic style letters. An advantage of a full acrylic letter is it allows you to have a beveled or softer return. You probably can't necessarily see the detail of that in the camera shot, but this has a bevel and then it goes to a flat return to give it additional dimension. The most common types of illumination for this would be face lit with a painted return lit with a painted face or a vinyl applied face, and then a 3-dimensionally lit letter where the face and the return are lit. This particular illumination style is very popular where you need a dimension and kind of a clean and unique look, very easy to differentiate on a darker background. The Acrylica series, as well as the Chromatic series and the Alpha Neon I'm going to get to later, are all built for interior and exterior uses. I'm going to just show you an example of one of our acrylic style letters. So this S is an all acrylic letter. It's face lit, and it might be difficult to see, but there is a bevel here, giving kind of a wedge shape to the return of the letter. And especially if these are mounted low where people can see them well, it just gives it a nice premium look. The other thing too you might notice about different acrylic type letters is as they get smaller, and by smaller I mean lower than 8 inches, you see a lot of hot spots, maybe dark spots, shadows, etc. Because we are an LED supplier with a very stringent quality control standard, we ensure that the letters come to you with minimal or no hot spots, preferably, for a nice seamless look. And that kind of separates us from the competition because we can make letters very small with even illumination. The final series I'm going to talk about is our Alpha Neon series. So Alpha Neon is a LED neon solution to give you the neon look that you're looking for. Obvious advantage to LED neon over traditional neon is you get something that is more resistant to wear and tear. You're comparing glass to acrylic. You have something that is low voltage, so installation is a little bit more available or accessible because there's a lot more sign suppliers or sign installers that are willing to work with low voltage stuff nowadays. Especially with UL restrictions getting more and more stringent, regular neon might not be available to be installed in other locations, as well as high voltage neon transformers generally tend to be a failure point as opposed to low voltage LED transformers. The most popular applications for this type of letter is for intricate script or unbroken letters. And an example of that would be the "We Make the Impossible Happen" seen above us, where we have letters that are about 3 to 5 inches tall, completely unbroken for a nice seamless look. As well as the other series, this can be available for interior and exterior use. Now, one thing I want to talk about the Alpha Neon series is the construction of the letter, or the construction of the neon itself, and I'm going to do that by just grabbing a sample over here. Okay. So this is a 8mm stroke Alpha Neon product. It is a welded stainless return. It's a machined or CNC routed, essentially, acrylic face. And inside of the return, what we do is we put a small shoulder all the way around. Same thing happens, a small shoulder is put on this piece of acrylic, and it pushes up against this shoulder right here. The reason we do that is because it provides a firm frictional fit, and then to secure it additionally, what we'll do is there's a couple options. Option one is we have studs from the back that mount to the face. They pull the face down, and that provides a nice seamless hardware-free look if you're looking at the profile, again, if this is close to you. Another option is, say you wanted to install this on a wall and you didn't have access to the back of it. In that case, you need hardware that's accessible on the sides. You can take the hardware out, remove the face, mount the return to the wall, and then you can take the acrylic and mount the acrylic back onto the face, which allows it just for easier installation in fields where the wall is not accessible behind you. The third option is essentially it's glued in there and it's a non-serviceable letter. And that's just an option depending on installation parameters and different things like that. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this previously, but the sizes that this is available in is 8, 10, 12, and 15 millimeters, and different sizes in between. We offer the face with a multitude of different radii available, from a lower concavity to greater concavity to a full three-dimensional type letter. And the final point I want to bring up with the Alpha Neon and with all of the series here, Alpha Neon, Acrylica, and Chromatic, is because we are an LED supplier, we can offer RGB, RGBW, DMX, full controllability if you want different colors or different effects to happen in your sign. And with that, I'm going to kind of conclude this portion of the segment. We're willing to accept any questions at this time. And I'm actually going to bring on one of my colleagues so we can just talk about a little more detailed ordering process and some questions he might have. So come on down, partner.
All right. So I noticed in your presentation, and I'm just trying to play the opposite side to help
Sure.
with some things. So here, I don't know how well it shows up in the camera, but there's like 3 different finishes there.
Sure.
That's a choice that the RFQ refresher person would ask.
Correct, correct. So you can select, in this case, we have a mirrored polish finish. We have a brushed finish here. You can do vertical or horizontal brush, random brushing if you wanted. But you can also do multiple colors as well. So this here is like kind of like a dark nickel color. This is more of a polished brass. This is more of a brush brass, but we can do, as mentioned previously, we can do copper, antique brass, varying different colors. Let's put it this way. If your designer has a color and it is an oxidizable form of steel, we can do it.
I don't know if it shows up on the camera, but with this mounting being flush, you don't see the studs off angle.
Right.
With this option, it could be a concern depending on where it was mounted.
Definitely.
That's one of the primary differences in the Halo is flush mount or standoff.
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And here, so that's a painted finish, is that correct?
Correct. Yes. Painted finish.
And
Yep.
it's a matte finish, so they could specify a Pantone or a Matthews?
Correct. Yep. So the most common paints in the industry would be Matthews or Axo. If you provide those 2 paint codes to us, we can, that's the easiest for us to work off of. Yep. We could do eggshell, matte, satin, high gloss, semi-gloss, a bunch of options. Yeah.
I mean, we're concerned for the font, obviously, and the stroke, but we can do these almost any size. The limitation potentially would be if there's seams or no seams, depending on how large you might get.
Correct. So if you want the smallest letter, this is the most flexible option because we can weld the letter down to the smallest, it can get smaller than, say, the machined letters or different things like that. So if you want a very small letter, this is the way to go.
And like I said, I mean, I'm sure a designer would understand that, but based on if it has a serif or no serif,
Correct.
that would have a determining factor in how small you might go with the letter you
Right.
design.
Correct.
In any of these formats, actually.
Yep.
And then here on this, which again, I'm not sure since it's a direct picture, these faces protrude out different heights.
Correct. Correct.
So that's another option the designer has the ability to design for or specify.
Right. So the reveals we're showing here is, an 1/8 inch, 3/16, 1/4 inch. But we've done letters actually where we go all the way up to 3/4 of an inch. Letter's going to be extremely heavy, but if you did want that, it is available, and we can show some other options as well.
And as we move over here, the primary difference between these two from a visual standpoint is this. You have this dark edge that helps you define the letter from off angle. Mm-hmm. So when you have white illumination, white plastic, white face, white plastic, white LED, off angle, it would be a blur of light. So by having this defined line, that helps it. The other option, of course, is to have a face.
Definitely.
Could be what? Any material?
Yeah, so this could be vinyl. It could be painted. But I'm going to go back to the defined edge, this mitered edge you mentioned previously. That's a very good point because if you see signage at nighttime, especially around dusk, a sign that is notorious for this is a bright blue sign. You can barely read it at dusk.
Yep.
I mean, it's actually, last night I was driving, I saw one, and I was like, it was a beautiful blue, but very difficult to read. And this does give you that kind of dimension. Even with some colors where you can kind of differentiate, a little better resolution to read it.
Now, these options here, obviously, we have different color LED behind them, including RGB and RGB.
Correct. Yes. Yep.
Excellent.
Yep.
And then over here, I know you had the ability to turn this off, but first, this is pigmented acrylic or plastic.
Correct.
These
Yes.
colors.
Yep.
And so they would be the same color illuminated or when they're off.
Correct. Yes.
Now you could put different color LED behind them and create some different effects as well.
Yeah, that's true.
As you can see when it's off, you have the red, the teal, the cyan, you have the blue, the yellow, and then obviously whites and reds. But again, you can use, from a design standpoint, you can use LEDs and mix colors to come up with also custom colors.
Correct.
And so here you have the half round face about a 270-degree
Yep.
base, and then this is a full 360-degree option.
Yep.
Now, this 360-degree option, how would you mount that?
Yeah, so you'd have to mount this with traditional neon standoffs. You know, that's kind of the only real way to mount it, to be honest.
So it really would simulate the look of neon.
Correct, it would.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to bring up as well is this is a very nice look when it's off, red, cyan, blue, yellow, respectively. But say, per example, you wanted to save some money, but you really wanted a nice pink color or a purpley color, different things like that, and you didn't want to buy a specialty acrylic, we could fill this with a specialty made, basically LED product, strip light, etc., simulate that color, and it would end up costing you a lot less than custom ordering a ton of acrylic.
Now, so the design process, an RFQ, when an RFQ comes in, are there things that potential people need to consider?
Yeah, so the most important thing with all of these letters, the two most important things when you're requesting a quote would be, we need to know the dimensions, and we need to understand the letter style you are looking for, whether it's face lit, halo lit, acrylic, or if it's a kind of a metal style letter. What we generally request is vector artwork, and the reason we request that is because it allows us to quote it very quickly. For Chromatic and for Acrylica, we can quote those letters with just the dimension and basic color scheme, paint, etc. But for the Alpha Neon, we require vector artwork to quote that properly.
Now, mounting, these are all stud mounted?
Yes.
So is that important where the studs are, or is there a variation based on the installation?
Right. So we provide, or we will let you know based off of a mounting pattern, both a physical and an electronic copy, where the studs are going to be located. But say, per example, you had some wall provisions that disallow you from putting the studs wherever you want. The customer in their vector artwork can go, this is where I need the studs and this is where I need electrical penetrations to occur. And in doing that, we can customize it for you. So a good example of that would be if it's mounted on a raceway, it's not going to do you, and the raceway is on this center line, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good if the electrical penetration is coming out the top of the letter. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we can customize that per your specification as well.
And on the studs, we found in the past, sometimes depending on the surface you're mounting to,
yep.
there may be rebar in the wall.
Right.
It's a known entity.
Right.
And that's the advantage of being able to move the studs around.
Correct.
But we have to know that before we fabricate.
Correct. Yes, we do.
Not after the fact.
Correct. Yep.
And everything we see illuminated here is 12 volt, but we can also do 24 volt.
Yes. Yep. So most of the stuff you're going to get is going to be 12 volt, just because 12 volt technology is a little bit more mature. So it gives us many more options. As well, with these small type of letters, there's not an inherent advantage going 12 versus 24 volt, especially if the efficacy of the product is the same.
Now over here, and I know in our modules we talk about it more, but here we have, what is that, maybe 5,000 K?
Correct. Yep.
Maybe 6,500?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
So in this instance, and that's kind of what I alluded to previously with the different colored acrylic versus the colored LEDs themselves. All of these have the same acrylic on the backer. The only thing we're differentiating here is the light color. And that gives you basically an easy way to, okay, this is the acrylic, this is how it diffuses. So if you do multiple things, let's put it this way, 7328 acrylic or acrylics like that, the most common white is the most consistent color. So if we can stick with the most common white, we're gonna have more reliable results, especially if you're doing multiple locations.
Yeah, that's good. Do we have any questions?
Yes, one of the questions is the product warranty.
Sure. So the product warranty we offer for this is a 1-year warranty, pretty consistent with the industry. And what we do is if any part that's workmanship, the product itself, all the components on it, if it's out, etc., we will just directly replace the letter that has any issues. So from us, what you're going to get a completed letter filled with the modules, all the mounting hardware that's been specified by you, a power supply, mounting template, UL stickers, so it's basically turnkey ready to go.
From a design standpoint, with the UL sticker, especially if this is an interior application like a high-end retail, you would want to specify where the UL label might be mounted, depending on where it is on the wall and the viewability of your customer.
Yeah, and we use mini stickers too, and the mini stickers are about 3/8 of an inch in diameter, so they can fit on a lot of these returns without taking up too much space.
Yeah, I mean, most of what you see here, that wouldn't be an issue.
Correct.
And here, you certainly wouldn't want the
Definitely
issue on
not.
the top, it would be on the bottom
Correct.
potentially.
Correct.
Here, same thing. So that's just something else from a design standpoint that ultimately the designer would want to
Correct.
note where they're going to be mounted
Correct. Yep.
and help us decide that or decide with them.
Correct. Yep.
And so like I said, we talked about letter heights, the font, the stroke determine sometimes the minimums, and certainly can not necessarily determine the maximums, but if they got very, like if our logo, if that was 10 feet, did we do that 10 feet?
Gotcha. So we can make the maximum size, because we produce these overseas, the max size that we typically recommend is around 42 or 48 inches, because we send this by an air shipment, and the shipping can get extremely expensive. We have made letters that are up to 6 feet, but we prefer to send that by ocean shipment just because of cost.
Well, and if they're larger, your layout would determine where some seams might be.
Exactly.
That's another
Yes.
issue. So-
Yeah, exactly.
So potentially, our expertise would help with that if it was larger and had to be seen.
Correct. Yep.
So we would, where the seam would be least invasive visually.
Yep.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Any more?
Yes, the last question would be if you can break down the ordering process.
Sure. So the ordering process is very simple. Once we have approved vector artwork from the customer, what we do is we create an order form. On the order form is all the pertinent information for that order. So you're going to have the color of the acrylic. If it's, say, I'm just going to go through with a chromatic letter. Say you had a brushed stainless, and then say part of the letter was also painted. You'll have a paint color. The face has, say, vinyl on it. This letter has everything. So you have paint, vinyl, acrylic, the length of the wire coming out of it, the stud mounted, or if it's going to be pan mounted, and basically all of those different pertinent details to the order. The sales rep will go over that with you so you all agree. Then we send it overseas to our facility to be manufactured. Manufacturing time takes about 21 days. We'll give you a lead time after about a week to let you know exactly where it's at. And then what it's going to do is directly ship to you, the customer. Inside of your box, you're going to get the finished letter with the mounting hardware, the mounting template, as well as the power supplies, and it comes in a nice sturdy little box labeled Alpha Letter, and you're ready to go. So that's it. So I basically, to conclude where we're at, if any of these products pique your interest, or if you need a quote, please feel free to reach out to us at www.everylite.com, or you can link our sponsor page on the ISA website, click the heart button, we'll get your contact information and we'll reach out to you. So have a great rest of your 2021 ISA show, and we'll see you later today.